Well, I think that the economist's point was that AI may end up taking some jobs, but not. But as as it usually happens, technology replaces old jobs and creates new jobs, and so um, I think that's kind of the point there. I think we've seen some uh, or some predictions of AI taking away with automated cars, taking away like taxi driver jobs, things like that. I think Uber's already experimenting with that kind of stuff as well. We've seen AI get kind of into the chat bot world where some customer service kind of things where you say, hey, my computer isn't working. What's the problem here? Some of that may be taken over at some point by artificial intelligence. They're already experimenting. People like me are a little nervous because they're already experimenting with some AI produced news stories for I mean, kind of basic level stuff right now, but like financial reports where the company puts out a bunch of numbers and the AI can write a financial report story faster than a human can usually write one. Sometimes they may miss some important points that aren't just in the numbers, but so things like that are some of the things we're talking about here. Hopefully, that leads to other new job openings and job categories, some of which will be, helping program the AI, I guess, and things like that. But I think the history of technology is technology comes in and replaces certain types of jobs and creates new types of jobs, and therefore the individual whose job is replaced, that's very unsettling. And I think this past election has been partially about the kind of unsettling nature of technology and globalization. And so for that individual person, it's troubling, but for kind of on a macro, a big level, the economy keeps kind of buzzing along, so to speak. Technologies, yeah, much of the technology improvements or progress over the last 50 years have been great for people, but I think you can make the argument that for some people there's been a very serious impact. I mean, I in my personal life play the guitar, and much of my guitar lessons now are online, and as opposed to going to the guy down the street who gives guitar lessons. Workers have to be flexible, and I think that causes a lot of nervousness and fear and things like that, and I understand that, and I think you know politicians and business leaders don't do a very good job of easing those fears and helping those workers. I think there's a lot of problems in that regard, and so I think when especially blue collar workers get nervous about their jobs going forward, and they they vote for an outsider candidate or things like and so that happens. One of the good things about technology is that you can do that from home now. You can take online courses and things like that to kind of retrain yourself. I think it's often too much incumbent on the individual worker who is impacted by a job change to take that upon themselves instead of kind of help from outside sources, right? But there are some of those opportunities available. I sympathize with the worker, whether it's a journalist or a cab driver or a customer service person who gets replaced by technology. That's not an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah, that is true. Technology is very well a part of daily life nowadays. I mean, you take it for like people who are blind and still in school or whatever. You know, you got now you got like Braille, which, of course, a lot of people on air probably don't know what that is, but it's basically, I'm just gonna explain. It's just what blind individuals read and write. And now you got like machines now that print that out. You know what I mean? You have actual like machines now that print it out for you. You just type it in and translate it into Braille, and then print it out, and then it comes out on paper, and it's pretty cool because you don't have to write anything. You just scan it or whatever, and then print it out, and it prints out in Braille. Depending on the thing, what it is. Of course, we also have printers that obviously print out stuff on paper so that we don't have to write it. Just type it up, and. So technology is a very influential thing, and when it comes to like customer service, that's one of the things that annoys me honestly about customer services, because when it comes to like if you have like a problem with like, I don't know, you get one of those calls or whatever. It's like, you will, press 1 for this, or like say yes for this or say no for this, and it's like, did you say this? And it's annoying because you keep having to repeat yourself. You know what I mean? They do. That is possible where they make that, when it says like when like you were saying about how artificial intelligence will eventually take over you know different jobs. That's pretty much starting to occur, but it's not quite gotten there yet. It's kind of still occurring, but you know, I don't know. But it's that's pretty much what things are now. It's either auditory or text to speech or something like that. I mean, look at the way you can translate something into text to speech. Like you can write something and then translate it into text to speech now. And it's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted a dialogue to be text to speech, you can have that. You know what I mean? It's something remarkable, but I'm sorry about that. That's a bit unprofessional. I should have turned off my speech. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question about the whole thing, it does seem to have that effect on jobs and stuff. I mean, you know, people get jobs and all this stuff happens, and it's kind of just what happens. But I do see where you're coming from. But as for artificial intelligence, that's been around for a while. But I think it's just not reaching its point of it's semi gonna take over jobs, but it's not quite gotten there yet. I mean, it's getting there, but it's not quite there yet. So it's like, oh, okay. So that's pretty much that. I mean, I don't really know what else to have input on it, but you know, that's pretty much that.
Good afternoon. This is Joe from Long Island, New York. So some of the things you mentioned, my biggest concern about artificial intelligence, automation, computerization, whatever you want to term it, you mentioned Uber and the impact of possibly autonomous cars, taking over, handling taxi service, or at least making a major dent in it. So on one hand, you have a whole bunch of people that are out of work. So, okay, that's one end of it. But even the ones that can still work, like you look at places like New York City, where probably a couple of years ago, a New York City medallion to drive a yellow cab was probably worth $1 million. What is that worth now? I know a friend of mine. We just had this discussion a week or two ago. Who lives in Melbourne, and it has just been obliterated. Sticking with the autonomous theme. I know they're working on autonomous trucks, tractor trailers. Theoretically, you could have autonomous tractor trailers. You could have autonomous trains, freight trains. You could have autonomous ships. I mean, you could theoretically, all of the major transportation that transports all of our goods, goods across this country, durable goods, could be through autonomous, traffic. And you could basically wipe out a whole industry. But, automating factories takes away jobs. I've heard of, they could, do things in McDonald's now to make some of that stuff automated. And at what point you're taking away jobs that what are those jobs being replaced with? Given the skill sets of the people that were doing those jobs, all of a sudden, the people that were working in a factory, they're not going to be working to maintain the automated equipment. They probably don't have the technical skill sets required to do that. That's my concern. Is a lot of this automation is having an impact on sort of lower level jobs, as far as like what your skill set needs to be. So what's curious to me is like what happens when like major industries just get decimated by this, and then where do those people, what is the the job that's going to replace that? And I don't know if I think there needs to be a serious discussion about that in the not so distant future, because automation or artificial intelligence is developing, exponentially fast. So it's a conversation that seriously needs to be had in the immediate future.
Yeah, actually, it's so. So, what will happen then? Are you gonna be a Trump supporter, a disappointed white man? What you journalists daily don't like?
I think God put enough spark in humans that a full singularity, thank you oh so very much, Mr. Kurzweil, yeah, not world, a full singularity world would not have. That if, God forbid, we go there and it be way too late, there's going to be pushback, because I don't know how nice you make a computer voice sound. I don't care how efficient a computer is. For one thing, it's going to screw up. So if when that happens, it's like, oh crap, what do I do? I mean, what are you going to do? Have the monkey do it? I mean, no. You're going to need a human to unscrew the damn thing. For another thing, again, I don't care how nice you get a computer voice. I don't know how efficient. I don't care how efficient you get the thing. There are certain things that only humans really can do. And I know that there's a God, and I know that He might allow it in order to test us and judge us and let us know that we're screwing up, not doing so well. But I think in the end, He would, through it, maybe cause us to say, well, dang, maybe this AI thing isn't gonna take over the entire thing. I don't know, but I don't like where it's going.
Hi there. I think this is a very interesting debate. I listened to a lot of podcasts from the BBC, and they have one called The Inquiry. They had an episode about this a while back. I do think that AI and related things will take away a lot of jobs in the future, but then we might have something like a minimum wage for everyone, for example, and then you will be able to do perhaps not work, but something else which interests you, or volunteer work or whatever, but you would still have an income. Yeah, of course, only time will tell if this really happens. And I think nobody really knows beforehand, and it might not be as big a thing as people think now, or it might be, of course, we simply don't know yet. But yeah, I think it is something which people should really follow and be really critical about. Although I don't think it will be something which you can stop once it has been, it is out of the bottle now. So I don't think there's anything. The only thing which I think you can do is try to, how do you put this? Try to help. This does sound really negative, but I'm not sure how to put it any other way in English. Help to manage the fallout of this phenomenon. So, yeah, really interesting.